Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by Old School Lane, producing various content from blogs, videos, and podcasts discussing about movies, TV shows, video games, and everything else in between since 2011. You can check out the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. We're associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, The Comic Book Cast, and The Arun Mehta Show. Everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats, the first episode of Casual Chats for 2022. I am Patricia.
My name is Arun.
So, today we're going to be talking about the newest Disney film that has been released and just came out on Disney Plus about, as of the recording of this podcast, a week ago. We're going to be talking about the 2021 Walt Disney animated feature, Encanto.
Okay, so to give a bit of backstory on this movie, so we managed to see this actually on Disney Plus and not in the theater, which is kind of a shame because me and Patricia were planning to go see it together. Unfortunately the coronavirus pandemic unfortunately has stopped us from doing that, so we pretty much had to rely on Disney Plus. So we sort of have seen it on a screen. At least, I mean, I've seen it on my 4K TV, and also Patricia's seen it on her Disney Plus account, but, so we got a chance to check this movie out. By the way, this movie's been promoted to hell, when you really think about it. We have not, every time I was, either watching a YouTube video, or I was, watching something else, Encanto was always there. And also, the previews have been going crazy. Everyone's been writing about it. This is actually a really different movie that Disney has kind of moved away from in the past. Because, I mean, this movie is not, about a princess. When you really think about it, this movie is about a girl who is in a big family of magical people, and this movie takes place in Colombia, and I just thought that it was a very interesting place for Disney to decide to go out and visit because as of this date, Colombia hasn't really gotten all that great press when you really think about it. There's been civil wars that have been going on there in the country, and there's been other, there's been, one thing that's also known for is drugs. I'm not going to shy away from that. But, there's a lot of, negativity that is gravitated towards the country of Colombia. But, hats off to Disney for deciding to take a look at the culture and take a look at, the positive sides of this and put together this really colourful, really fun, and really enchanting movie.
Yeah. So it was done by Jared Bush and Byron Howard, who you guys remember as the team who worked on films such as Bolt, and they did Tangled, Zootopia, and they did Moana, and now they're coming back together to do Encanto. And you can definitely tell that it has that same colorful atmosphere. It has the same great cast of characters. It has a really intriguing story. And coming back from working on Moana, they have the collaboration of Lin-Manuel Miranda. And And this was a big year for Lin-Manuel Miranda. There have been 4 movies featuring his music alone. Vivo, Tick Tick Boom, In the Heights, and Encanto. This was a big year for him.
He's had a busy time in the studio, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, if you have him in your music studio, I mean, like, this is I would say the equivalent of having Jim Lang in your Nickelodeon, Nicktoon. I think, like, like, you're in for a treat, I think, if you're going to be, wanting music out of your, your animation project. And so, Lin-Manuel Miranda does a phenomenal. I think maybe we really should start off with the music. I think talking about this because
we have talked about Lin-Manuel Miranda before because we did the Hamilton podcast together. And now here's the thing: I have not seen any of the 4 movies that came out this year, the ones that he worked on. I haven't seen In the Heights, I haven't seen Vivo, and I haven't seen Tick Tick Boom. So I cannot tell you what in terms of like how much of a good quality those songs are, but the songs here are incredible.
Yeah, like, the family Madrigal and, We Don't Talk About Bruno, I think, is definitely, like, fan favorites of this movie. I think.
We Don't Talk About Bruno has been everywhere. Like, people have listened to that song before they even seen the movie. It's very similar to, like, in Hamilton. It's like, they listened to the songs of Hamilton even before they even saw the Broadway musical.
One thing I would definitely say is that this movie is definitely very, very colourful and is very, very well animated, I think. There was one time when we had to pause the movie and I just took a moment to marvel at, like, how detailed one of the characters were. I can't remember exactly which one, but you could see, like, I was counting all the follicles of her hair. I remember
this one. Yeah. You were looking at the Abuela.
Abuela, yeah. So looking at Abuela, like, you should pause this movie from time to time because if you don't, you hear the term like, the money is on the screen. It definitely, you can see it. It looks absolutely phenomenal, and it gives Pixar a run for its money. And I'll definitely say that with a huge set of balls, between my pants.
That's kind of difficult because we praised Luca for its animation and its presentation as well.
Yeah, but you look at Encanto, and you see the follicles of people's hair, you see the skin textures, you see the fabric that they're wearing on their clothes. You know that it's fabric, and the cinematography that's also done as well. Like you look at Abuela, and then you see Madrigal behind you, and she's blurred and everywhere else is blurred, and the focus is on the character. And you only get that in live action films when you really think about it. And here it is, in a 3D environment. It makes me wonder what it would be like if they actually did real people rather than cartoons. It's incredible to look at this movie. And anyway, we focused a lot on the music and a lot of the detail, I guess you could say, graphical enhancements of the of the movie. But the important thing about this is the story.
I guess we could get into the story. So, from what I understand, when looking at the behind-the-scenes tales of when they were working on Encanto, I know that Byron Howard and Jared Bush, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and various other peoples, they would visit Colombia so that they could be able to research the buildings and interact with the people, and they were able to get an idea on how they wanted to have it look contextual-wise, and also they were having various discussions about Latin American culture so that they can be able to, get the authenticity of the country itself, which, here's the thing, Disney has not done anything like this since the 40s, in which they would have their animators go over to South America and then they would just draw everything that they were inspired to do on their trip. Very similar to like Saludos Amigos and the Three Caballeros, in which they were able to do that. So to see this great Hispanic representation back after almost 60 plus years was, that just goes to show you how much Disney has improved in terms of the representation of Hispanic culture. And, we've been seeing a lot of it recently. As we mentioned before, we watched The Owl House, and they have a Dominican protagonist. And so, yeah, it's just great to see more Hispanic representation other than just Mexican. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be, because, Mexican culture is highly deserved to be properly presented. But we have like amazing movies like Coco and The Book of Life, and just recently Maya and the Three. But it was so nice to see a movie set in Colombia where this kind of amazing attention to detail and just this amazing quality put into it.
Yeah. So, I think we should say we're going to focus on the story. Then we say, like,
Yeah, I guess I was talking about behind the scenes story. I think you mean the plot.
I think you meant the plot. Yeah, sorry, I don't.
Okay, yeah. So I guess so spoilers, by the way, for those who haven't seen it.
Yeah. So,
okay,
well,
so yeah,
if you're listening to the Encanto casual chats before actually watching Encanto, like, your priorities are wrong. Like,
I know that there are some podcasts out there that do spoiler-free stuff, but not here. Spoilers ahead.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So the movie starts off with the abuela Alma, who loses her husband Pedro when they are fleeing away from Colombia in their city, so that they can be able to get away from all the fighting that's happening. And when Pedro sacrifices his life because the soldiers are going after the group that try to escape the city, a miracle starts happening when a candle starts approaching her. And so then the candle creates a sentient house. There they call it the casita. The casita is Spanish for like a house, but it's more like a very sentimental way of saying it. And so this is where the Madrigals live for many decades, and then a major community starts building around it, where the Madrigals are the ones who are like the main focus of the family, where there's this magical house, and each of the family members gets an ability. So the abuela is like the matriarch of the entire household, and she had 3 children: Julieta, Pepa, and Bruno. And I know. Everybody's going to be saying in the chat, we don't talk about Bruno. Okay, just getting that out there. Okay, so yeah, Bruno is able to see the future, and Beta has the ability to kind of like control all the weather, even though that sometimes she can get a little bit out of control. Oh, you don't want to mess with her, because she sometimes, when she's really really angry, there's like dark clouds, and then there's rain, and then there's hail. But when she's happy, everything is just really nice. And then Julieta is able to feed people various foods and heal them from whatever ailments happen to them. They have children of their own, and they have their own unique gifts. And so the child we're going to be focusing on here is one of Julieta's youngest daughters, and that is Mirabel. Now, her 2 older sisters are Isabella and Luisa. Isabella is able to grow flowers, and Luisa has super strength. And it was her day to get her own power, and what was going to be the gift that she was going to help make the community a better place. But she doesn't receive a gift, and she is the outcast of the entire family. But throughout the beginning of the movie, she is perfectly happy with it. I mean, she's very supportive with whatever that she can be able to do. It's some of the family members who just see her as just this inconvenient problem, especially Isabella and the abuela. Where basically they're just saying, like, let them take care of it. You just, stay behind, and, you don't have to worry about doing this. We know that you don't have powers, but, we'll take care of it. So sometimes she does feel like a bit of an outcast, but she just wants to be able to do what's best for the family. And we do get that in the first song, The Family Madrigal. And it's a very upbeat and very light song that's able to introduce all the characters all at once, and it's a great way to open it off.
Yeah. So within that song, like, by the way, there's a lot of plot that gets introduced into the song. By the way, like, the main boss being like, we don't talk about Bruno, which everyone answers like he's like the one we just don't talk about at all. And then there's also Mirabel. Herself ends up being kind of like being the focus of the song at the very end, because everyone's like saying, well, what's her ability, and then finally the one of her family members just turns around and says, oh no, she never got one, and just leaves it at that. And it's kind of funny, really, because it's kind of like the ending of, like, I remember, like, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, when, like, they do, like, the whole, like, musical number of, like, them going off to go see Terrence and Phillip the movie, and then he goes to the ticket booth, he says, 2 tickets please to Ashes of Fire, and he says, no, and that's the end of the song. it kind of reminds me of that, which is pretty hilarious in a way. So, I mean, and also, when you really think about it, like, Mirabel, in a way, is kind of like Sadness from Inside Out. Like, she's kind of like this, like, other piece that all the other emotions never really understood at the very beginning, but then, by the end of the movie, they understand why she's there. So in a way, that's kind of cool. So they've taken from various movies, and I think they've put this together, and I think that's been rather clever how they've evolved the characters in this movie.
Absolutely. And and each of the characters fit in the plot. Like, there's no characters that feel like, oh, why are they there in the movie? They're just taking up space. Like, every single one of them have their own arcs. Every single one of them have their own conflicts. They all have a reason on why they should be there, to have their own case on why they should be able to have the gifts that they do have and how they react to it. I mean, throughout the movie, especially in the first act, we have Antonio, and he is the youngest of the family members, and he's going to be getting his own gift. And everybody's afraid that he's not going to get a gift, just like how Mirabel was never able to get a gift. And so her and Antonio were really, really close because they both stayed in the nursery, which apparently in the Madrigals, if you get a gift, you get your own room, and your room is able to highlight your gift and your talent. And so while Mirabel never got a gift, she stayed in the nursery, and she was there with Antonio. And so when Antonio's time to get his own gift, and, he was afraid at first. And so he called Mirabel to walk him alongside him so that he can be able to find out what is going to be his gift. And she wasn't planning on going there because, well, because she never got a gift, she felt like the outcast. And so they just felt, oh, we don't want you around because we don't want the same thing to happen to Antonio.
Well, there's also another thing about it. I don't know if you picked this up when she was walking through the crowd, and she was flashbacking in her mind, like what happened to her when she didn't get her gift. So, I mean, she didn't want to do it also because she herself felt like she didn't want to relive that bad memory. For her, it's it's something that's just been haunting her basically her entire life, and she's had to relive that again, and then she has to witness Antonio, get a gift. And, she tries her best to kind of say, this is for Antonio's day, and, I'm not going to get affected by this. In fact, her mother points her out this as well before all the ceremony and everything like that. And then when they take the picture and she's not in it, and it all just goes super slow motion, and then that's the next song number that hits, and then it all just comes flooding
which is
out.
Very similar to the Hamilton song, in which when one of the sisters is looking back on the wedding from her other sister, and with Alexander Hamilton, you have that freeze frame moment in which, I'm really happy that you got married, but I really loved Alexander as well. And so, yeah, there was a lot of conflict that was going on. So, yeah, that slow motion moment was very similar to that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like at the moment, it was kind of like I thought, hey, wait a second, is this like Mirabel? Is this like her finding it? Well, is this kind of like foreshadowing to say that she does have a gift? She can control time or something like that, and then
exactly.
Yeah, I thought, oh, hey, hang on a second. Maybe it's like the only way she activates her gift is that when she feels certain ways or something like that. I don't know, but no, that's not a gift, by the way. Mirabel doesn't really we'll get to that in the end, I guess.
We'll get to that in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, we find out that Antonio's gift is that he's able to speak to animals, and so he has this huge room that's filled with trees and luscious plants and animals, which the tree looked like the giant tree from Animal Kingdom, which I thought that was like an interesting coincidence. And then we find out that I guess it was kind of foreshadowed because, before that Antonio was able to learn what his secret talent is, Mirabel gives him a gift, and it was a tiger because she says, I know that you love animals. So that's actually really nice foreshadowing.
Yeah. For a minute I thought I thought maybe she was going to pass some kind of curse onto her, something like that. That's the one thing that's so interesting about the very beginning of the film. You really don't know what to expect. At one point I thought, Mirabel was going to do something to ruin. Yeah, not to say that she didn't try to do something to ruin Antonio's day. She saw the cracks happening in the house, and then she stopped the entire party and brought everyone outside. And then Abuela just got angry at her, and then that was that. But we'll explain all that in a minute. But the one thing I really like about the first act is that it leaves you feeling like anything could happen at any point. It's almost kind of like there's a thriller aspect to it, in regards to being kind of like a whimsical family film, kind of going on. Why is it that Mirabel doesn't have a gift? Can she pass this on to other people? Something going. Yeah, it does leave you wonder if something is going on within the family, what's happening. Bruno's obviously the main thing about this, and so we move on from that, and we now realize that something isn't right. All these cracks appear in the house, and the house looks like it's about to fall apart. And then all of a sudden, it just suddenly repairs itself. And so we get that whole thing. And but then I don't know if it's actually is it now that we find out that Mirabel finds out that Abuela does know something's going on with the magic, but doesn't know exactly what.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah.
So I'm sure that you guys probably know this if you've seen the movie, but Bruno had a vision, and the vision she had to, Mirabel actually had to like piece it together because she had to go over to Bruno's room that nobody had visited for a very long time, and it was like really really high up in this gigantic mountain, and she had to like walk through the stairs, and then finally she was able to piece off the glass shards that was featuring her vision of the future, which was a very unclear one, where it was basically Mirabel, and it showed the house being cracked, and it showed the house in completely fine. So this was basically a vision about her, and she didn't know what was that. And here's the thing, the abuela knew this as well, and this was kind of like almost the last straw for Bruno, because every time that he would see something in the future, it would always end up in disaster, which is why that he was kind of like ostracized from the family. I mean, we even had in that one song moment, "We Don't Talk About Bruno," which of course is one of the more famous songs in the movie. It's probably the most famous songs in the movie.
Yeah,
where they're
I
talking about like
with you. In regards to like, I mean, we'll get to Bruno's visions in a bit, but I think there's one bit that we did miss out, which, by the way, is an important thing. Actually, we kind of missed out. That's the first song number from one of the sisters. Her name
Louisa, yes.
Louisa. So Louisa, she's supposed to be the super strong character, but she sings this song, which makes her, gives everyone the feeling that she's not as strong as everyone thinks she is. She's feeling very weak at times. And
Yes.
she feels like that. There's a lot of pressure being put on her to do all these sorts of things, and she sings this out to Mirabel, and
Surface Pressure is the name of the song.
yeah, and Mirabel gives her a hug, which I think is like that was like, oh wow, she's she's not the family favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but she still loves her family regardless. Which I think is
Louisa was definitely a surprise for me personally, because it's like, she in her exterior appearance, she looks like she's really really strong, and she can be able to take anything, and she won't have any problems with handling any problems. But deep down inside, when she sings her song Surface Pressure, she feels like she has to carry the weight of everything and everybody. And so this is another thing that I guess we missed out on. In addition to the cracks, Louisa is feeling weaker because her powers are starting to slowly drain away from her. And so she's saying, when I tried to carry something, I felt weak and it felt really heavy. And so then she starts singing the song to Mirabel, saying, I need to be the one to carry everything because all of the pressure's on me. I can lift this. I can carry that. I feel like I have to do all these things because that's what my purpose is. And it's so incredibly tragic.
By the way, she makes a Hercules reference in that, but they use a different they've made like a completely different Hercules. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't that have been a great opportunity to cameo Hercules in this movie?
Yeah, that would have been a funny little Easter egg, but I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have the rights to do it. I'm not sure.
Well, why would they not have the rights to it? It's a Disney movie.
I mean, I know it's a Disney movie, but I know that this was done by Clemens and Musker and not, not Bush and Howard. So I don't know.
It would have been hilarious. They should have done a 3D model. A 3D model of Hercules would have been interesting to at least look at. That
would have been really really funny.
Oh, they should have done that. But that's a missed opportunity in a way.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
That was a missed opportunity. I mean, I guess. Here's the thing. I mean, like we know that there are a lot of Easter eggs where all the characters are connected and they kind of like follow in the same universe. I mean, we did see Rapunzel and Flynn going over to Elsa's coronation.
You know what? Actually, when we got on Antonio's celebration, like I was saying, look in the party and look for characters because I guarantee you they'll stick some in there. And we didn't really find anybody, which was kind of
there was no animal characters. There was no, I didn't see Iago from Aladdin. I didn't see like any of the characters from like Zootopia or something or Moana. It's like, maybe there was something in the background, but we just missed it.
Yeah. So moving on, mind you, it was kind of weird that she would go to that sister first because there's a sister there that like can hear everything that's going on in the house. You would have thought that she would have been the first person you went to first. But,
it was a bit of a surprise. Well, I mean, that wasn't her sister; that was her cousin, by the way, Dolores. Yeah, Dolores was the one who can hear everything. But when she was trying to get clues as to, what was happening, she found out first that her powers were starting to weaken and her eye was twitching. So she felt, okay, maybe she knows something. And that's when we find out that she's starting to feel a little bit weak, which is why she went over to her to find out what was going on. And then she was saying, oh, I think you should check out Bruno's room because maybe, Bruno was able to find, some clues and maybe he had a vision on what's going on with the house. And so that's why Mirabel got the idea of going over to Bruno's room in the first place, and that's where we saw the glass shards of his vision of her. And so then afterwards, we have this whole subplot about Isabella getting married, and Mirabel's trying to warn everybody, saying about, this is the vision that Bruno was given to me, and inadvertently, when the house starts cracking more and Mirabel was trying to fix everything, she kind of like ruined the marriage proposal.
Yeah. So, well, I imagine we've kind of rushed a bit further into that because there was the, we did get the "We Don't Talk About Bruno."
Yeah, we did get that part where.
Yeah. By the way,
really didn't want to talk about him.
I mean, I think Bruno, is an important character. I think to probably talk about at this point because I mean, when you really think about it, like Bruno is built up to basically be the villain of this movie. When you hear it from everybody else, like, they, mind you, like, I don't know, like, you hear it all, and I guess in the eyes of, like, someone who would, like, say, oh, wow, that's a really terrible thing that Bruno did, like, when you really think about it, like, he warned, Antonio's parents that, they were going to be, there was going to be rain on their wedding, and, which is, like, not... then all of a sudden, that kind of like, she transformed that into a hurricane or something like that, from what she says. Yeah. And but when you really think about it, when you listen to like all the complaints that they have about Bruno and his vision stuff like that, like it's like hashtag first world problems. Like it's just they're not really that big. You could have moved the wedding inside temporarily until the rain stopped, or you could have done things to circumvent the visions. When you think about it, like they didn't really care enough to actually do that. When you really think back at it. So, but mind you, you're not really supposed to kind of like think about that first. I mean, the idea is that Bruno is the big bad Bill, and like they even use like the green, fire and smoke and like the lights and everything like that to make you think he's like Scar from The Lion King. Have you noticed that? Like,
or like, Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah, Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, like they use like the whole green evil like lighting and like smoke and everything like that, and evil grin and stuff like that Disney's known for. Pretty much at this point. So, I mean, they build everything up to be, for Bruno to basically be the bad guy of this movie. They even do it, like, in the posters and even in the trailer, when you look at it. Like, they really build this up, but then we actually, we'll get to meet Bruno later on, but, there's some more kind of stuff in between after that, because, there's the bit where, Mirabel goes to go find the this vision that Bruno has, and so she has to go into his room, and it's basically Prince of Persia, or, it meets Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's like, it's that whole... Raiders of the Lost Ark, or whichever movie that is with that type of thing. I was thinking that it's that whole time when I was seeing all of that, it's like, are they going to do the whole, like, classic, the walls are closing in, and, like, Mirabel loses her glasses, and she just reaches her glasses at the last moment when it all just closes down, like the same way Indiana Jones. I was waiting for that moment to come through, but thankfully it didn't. So, like, it's not like Chicken Run, where, like, there's another movie that references Indiana Jones, so I think we can... definitely put that on way. But she finds like all the fragments of the vision that Bruno had, and puts them all back together and realizes what's going on. And then we get to the point where Mirabel pretty much ruins the engagement between the other two characters. And
her sister and some guy from the neighborhood.
Yeah. So, then obviously that's, Abuela and Mirabel, basically their thing, their relationship just sours even further. And then I'm trying to think if, because then Mirabel then goes off to try and search for Bruno and figure out where this guy, where what happened to Bruno and where he was. And then he finds him. And then we realise that, he's just, he's actually haunted by, like, his gift. Pretty much, like it's and he thought the best thing that he could do was just basically ostracize himself from the family and stop what he's doing. He's not had a vision since the last one that he had with Mirabel. So
Bruno's ability to see bad things in the future kind of reminds me a little bit of Absol from the Pokemon franchise, where Absol was a Pokemon who was able to see disasters and trying to warn people, but they ostracized Absol because every time that they saw him, natural disasters happened. When in reality, Absol is trying to warn them to get away from the disaster. So it was always a very misunderstood Pokemon, and kind of like similar to Bruno, in which he was very, very concerned about his ability to see through the future, because every time that he saw it, something bad happened, and they just thought that, we can't use you because every time that you predict something bad happens. And so he decided that he was going to stay away from the family and that he was going to go away, when in reality he was in the house the entire time.
Yeah. So, by the way, there is an Easter egg in Bruno's kind of like space, if you will, like in between the house. Apparently, the boot from Wall-E, with the plants in it, that's on his shelf. And yeah, we missed that, but I've just looked it up now. So.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, there you go. I'm sure there's a lot of Easter eggs in this movie that we missed out on.
Okay then, and apparently Mama Coco was in the group.
She was.
Yeah, apparently she was there. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's awesome. All right then. Yeah, and I have to give props to John Leguizamo as Bruno. He did a really good job playing as him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when you think of John Leguizamo and him doing animation movies, you think of him as Sid in the Ice Age movies, where he's kind of like really annoying, and he was he was kind of like he's the lighthearted comedic character, and he was just mostly
what I'm just I was talking about the "We Don't Talk About Bruno" song before. Yeah. When Mirabel is talking with her cousin. Camilo. Apparently Bruno is in the background listening to them talk or sing or whatever. Really? Yeah, he's up there on the balcony.
Oh, wow. So he heard the entire thing. So if he heard them say this, phrase, "We don't talk about Bruno," and he saw the family like saying this all the time, no, it's no wonder why he didn't want to interact with them. It's like they see him as a failure.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in a way, I think I've got to be honest. I mean, I don't want to speak out loud about people I know, but I mean, let's just say that I think I know a lot of people who would relate very well with Bruno. I think. Yeah,
and, they have an ability, they have a gift, but sometimes the gift just doesn't turn out as well as they hoped, or as well as the people who benefit from it hope, and so they feel kind of ostracized. Yeah. And so
we talk about Bruno being built up to be this villain, but when you really think about it, like he has like all the hallmarks of justifying his ability to be a villain. Like would you I mean in a typical would you say like in a Disney film, like say like 40, 50 years ago, like Bruno would definitely be the villain of this movie?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, imagine if he was able to see the future and see all the bad stuff that was happening. He can be able to take advantage of the heroes saying, "I know exactly what you're going to be doing." He'll always be like 3 steps ahead of them. And maybe like the hero will be like, "Oh, just because you can see the future doesn't mean it's set in stone." And maybe they'll do something that he didn't expect, and then he'll be able to be defeated at the end.
I'll tell you what, babe. I'll raise you that. I'll take that and raise you this. Bruno was just trying to do his best to help people, and they just they rejected him because of that, and so he basically just gets his revenge on them all by saying like, okay, well, if this is the way that you're going to treat me, then I'm going to use I will use my visions for evil. So, but then his motivation is for his family rejecting him because of that. So that'd be kind of like his arc.
He's very akin to like a Pixar villain, like all the Toy Story villains, like the Prospector and Lotso Hugging Bear. It's like they're evil, but they have a justified reason on why they're evil.
Mm-hmm. So he's got all the justifications to be a Disney villain, but he just credit to Bruno, he doesn't act on them.
He's not the villain of this movie. And here's the thing. Disney has been doing this for the past 10 years, in which they have the surprise twist villain. We saw this first in Frozen, where we thought, okay, who's going to be the bad guy on this? And we thought that, with Elsa, maybe it's her inner conflict. But no, Hans is the main villain of the movie. With Zootopia, who's the villain of the movie? Oh, we thought, is it the predators? Well, no, it's one of the prey who is the villain of the movie. So they've been doing this trope about like the surprise twist villain. And I thought, okay, if Bruno's not the villain, somebody from this family has to be the villain.
Do you know which character I'd love to see Bruno have a back and forth with?
Who?
Scar from The Lion King.
Ooh,
like,
interesting.
Just the way, like, Scar, like, he's trying to, Scar's pretty manipulative. Like, he would say, so, if it was somehow, I don't know if, like, just in, like, I don't know, like, say, in Injustice 2 or, like, a Mortal Kombat kind of, like, situation where, Bruno is, like, face to face with Scar, and Scar's, like, saying, all the times that, the Madrigals, rejected you, and everything like that. Why did you never turn on them and take advantage like that? And, like, Bruno says, like, because that's not what family does, and, like, then turns it back on Scar and says, why did you do this to your family? And, everything like that. Imagine the back and forth they would have as characters. Saying, like, that would be some hell of a conflict, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have been really interesting. Or maybe what would happen if Bruno met up with Ursula? Somebody who was ostracized and cast away from the castle where she had a life of luxury, and then King Triton said, you're an evil witch, you are banished from Atlantica. And then maybe she would have made a deal with Bruno saying, why don't we be able to do this together, and to basically have a manipulative thing, just like kind of like what Scar would have done.
Yeah, but I don't know, I don't know if they would relate that well, because Ursula wasn't like part of the royal family
No, she wasn't. Well, I mean, she wasn't part of the royal family, but she said that she was like connected with the royal family, so she did have a connection with them in the past.
Yeah. So, I think I think it'd be interesting to see Bruno have an interaction with a Disney villain, like justify why he never turned evil, and like because he could never do that to his family, which I think would carry a lot of weight, and like and then Bruno probably will get killed by one of them. So. Yeah,
it's like, how would Bruno die? Would a gigantic rock fall on him? Would he be stabbed with a sword? Will he be reversed by a spell? Let's see.
But if it was up to Scar probably just like get him by the neck, and like then you would just say he never saw that coming. Oh, no way. But anyway, going back, we're sorry, everybody. We've been doing podcasts for hours now, and we're just kind of going a bit silly. So
we're going all over the place. We just finished, as we're recording this podcast, we just finished recording the first episode of Dream Machine in over a year. And I mean, if we were actually doing comparisons between this movie and with The Croods: A New Age, and so we were just saying, like, wow, face value, they're similar. It's a movie about a family, and they're able to be connected as a family, and then there's this huge conflict that's going on. So Encanto was able to do well what Croods: A New Age wasn't able to do.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to now that Mirabel's finally found Bruno, and she's managed to get him back into doing visions again, because he stopped doing visions because of like all the bad stuff that was happening, but Mirabel needed him to complete the other vision, and so it is actually kind of like really intriguing watching Bruno like try and put a vision back together again, and watching his eyes glow green, and it all kind of like coming back together again, and like I said, when his door started glowing, when he started doing his vision, it was kind of like a welcome back, Bruno. Like there was like gonna feel like a welcome back a little bit, which was really nice too. Which is a really nice feeling to have in a movie, like
absolutely, and so we were able to find out more details about the vision. So it was pretty much the same thing, where it showed Mirabel and it showed the house both being cracked and being restored. But how was she going to be able to restore the house? She had to hug somebody. Who was she going to hug? Isabella. And she had completely ruined her engagement not too long ago. And so they were not getting along with each other. I mean, even throughout the course of the movie, they weren't getting along with each other either, because Isabella is seen as the perfect one in the family. She knows how to make beautiful flowers. She's pretty, and she's able to present herself as such the perfect person. And you have Mirabel, who is kind of like a little bit clumsy, a little bit awkward. She's the youngest of the family. She doesn't have power. She has curly hair with glasses, and so It's like, oh, she's the black sheep of the family. Well, Isabella's the perfect one. And so she basically had to confront her saying, I need a hug from you. And then Isabella's like, I don't want a hug from you. You ruined my engagement and you're the weird one. Why should I even hug you? And then she goes about with this other song where she's singing about how, she has to be perfect. She has to be able to do everything that's perfect. Oh yeah, Isabella la Perfecta. So
you know what? I'm actually gonna be looking forward to like all the 4 and 5-year-olds who have watched this movie, and now every time like a conflict breaks out in the family, they have to break out in song.
Well, at least there's been an improvement about just a bunch of 5-year-olds singing "Let It Go."
Yeah, I don't know. You didn't flush the toilet again.
Yeah. Why didn't you wash the dishes? It was your turn to do so.
Mm-hmm. And
anyway, but yeah, I this is another very similar one with Louisa, where she was able to sing a song where all her life she had to be perfect. She had to present herself as being perfect. Even her flowers that she created was perfect. And then when she created the cactus for the first time, she's like, this is rough. This is weird. I've never done this before, but I like it because it's imperfect. And then she goes about a song where she's singing about how she wants to be imperfect. She doesn't want to put in this facade about her being perfect. And it's a great song, very similar to Luisa's song, where she's able to sing about how she feels so controlling and she feels so manipulative to her family, saying, okay, I'm the perfect one. I should present myself as that when she doesn't want to be.
Yeah, like, she's the one, like, I mean, if you think about it, like, she's the character who, is, she's the massive opposite of Mirabel in this movie. And it's interesting to see her, like, just go from, like, stereotypical Disney princess to, like, I wouldn't say goth, but, she wants to be, like, she wants to create, like, these imperfect, things, and wants to do, like, all this, like, she wants to, like, experiment with other characters. She wants to kind of break out from, like, this whole thing. And because when I first saw her, and like she was like all pretty and she was like doing all these flowers and stuff like that, and I was like I was just kind of sitting there thinking, imagine if she was in the Disney Princess Royal Court, and I guarantee you they would probably be gossiping about how she's trying way too hard. I could just see the conversation just kind of go down. Like
yeah, exactly. Like while she's doing all of her pretty flowers, you have like Snow White, and you have Cinderella, and you have Aurora and Belle in the background saying she's trying way too hard. She needs to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, she needs to stop. Oh, good grief. But, just it's, again, like, another great song, which, is actually one of the more, Louisa's song, like, it does bring character development into the franchise. That's the one great about Lin-Manuel Miranda. Like, every song that I think we've seen so far actually gives, like, development to the story, development to the character, or, like, introduces a new element. There's no useless song in this movie.
That's a consistent thing that he has been doing. Even with Hamilton, every single song that happens, it's developing the characters, it's moving the story along, and it's able to progress, what's happening in terms of like the plot and the conflict. He's able to do this amazingly with Hamilton, and he did it amazingly well here. Now, here's the thing. I haven't seen Moana yet, so and I know that he did the music for that too. So maybe he did the same thing where he was able to do that kind of music style. And I know that he does his usual style.
We're not talking about those songs. We're talking about Encanto. But
I know.
The feeling is that why I think now Disney is asking itself, why do songs exist in our films? Like, why does this have to break out in song at that particular point? Like, there's a reason why Frozen's Let It Go became such a big thing, because, like, it's Elsa breaking away from, like, away from, everywhere, and explaining how she feels about the way things are at the moment, and, then developing into, like, the cold never bothered me anyway, and she's happy just to stay up in the mountains, until, Anna comes to find her. So, like, I think now Disney are turning around and saying, why do these songs exist? And Lin-Manuel Miranda is basically saying, okay, well, this is the reason why this song exists, and this is the reason why this song exists, and that's the reason why that song exists, and they exist for a reason. Like,
Exactly.
By the way, I do somewhat envy this generation of people watching Disney films this way, because let me, for those of you who don't understand where me and Patricia are coming from, let me just briefly say this. We came from the generation of Marry the Mole. It's just we've had some pretty terrible songs that we don't know why they exist, but they're there.
Yeah.
And also Don't Make Me Laugh, also, which was
Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much a lot of the really terrible songs from the mediocre Don Bluth movies, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. So we grew up with those, and I think it's given me a higher appreciation of like why a song exists in a movie. And Encanto, does not wrong note in this movie. I'll safely say this. Like, there's not a song that I can say in Encanto where I just say, well, why does this exist? Of course, it exists.
Exactly.
It's
even with Frozen, where a lot of people have praised the soundtrack, and Frozen 2, which we talked about a few years ago. There were like one or two songs in which it doesn't really need to be there,
Yeah.
But here, every song matters. And that's the thing that Disney has done consistently ever since they first started with Snow White. Now, here's the thing that I remembered listening to in an episode of the Animated Anarchy podcast with Andrew and Michael when they talked about Gay Paris, where there was a lot of songs in Gay Paris, but they were just there because it looked pretty and it sounded pretty, and they got Judy Garland to sing it. And it was just there. There was no character development. There was no story progression. There was no conflict. It was just there for the sake of being there. And Andrew and Michael were talking about, back around when there was a lot of other companies were trying to be like Disney, and they were trying to do the same thing with Disney, such as the animation and the music. They were saying like, okay, we're going to do songs just like a Disney movie, but they don't understand why that they did it. They don't understand the purpose on why they put songs in their movies. As for Disney, the reason why they do it is because it develops the story, it develops the characters, it moves the plot forward, and it builds the conflict. A lot of animation companies, especially around the 90s when the Renaissance era happened, where they would have a bunch of musicals, they would just be there and they just did it because Disney did it, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So, moving the plot forward, we now get the conflict once again with Abuela and Mirabel. And by the way, I looked at this whole conflict between them, and I thought, oh wow, like Abuela's been our villain this entire time. That's why I kind of blurted out. Which, by the way, was the wrong thing to say when you really think about it, because Mirabel accused Abuela of putting pressure on everybody, and that's the reason why everybody's getting these gifts. That's the reason why Dolores will never, Louisa will never be strong enough, and Isabella will never be perfect enough, and she's pretty much going one by one. Like everyone who has a gift, no one will be able to be, better enough to be, the best, and that's the reason why everyone is kind of going through all of this because of you, putting pressure on everybody, and then the house just starts to collapse again, and then the whole thing falls down, and. We get Mirabel blaming herself for it and then running off, and which is a genuinely sad moment in the movie. I think this is it kind of reminds me of probably the only bit of Monsters University I actually where I'll use a better example. It reminds me of when King from the Owl House runs off because he realizes that he's learned the truth, and now he's on the beach looking up at the moon and realizing things have changed now. And it's not changed for the good.
His whole life that he thought of him being a king was a complete lie, and so he was wondering, who am I? Why did my father abandon me? And we didn't know anything about King. We just thought, he's the funny character. But then when we have this sad moment where King goes through an existential crisis, then it starts becoming really serious, and then it has that really amazing moment where he's telling Luce, I don't know who I am, and I'm scared to know who I am. And that was a great moment.
Mm-hmm. Mind you, I'm looking. I bet we're gonna get a fan art soon of like Sully, Mirabel, and King's kind of like sitting there on a on a rock, kind of like just looking out on like the ocean, and having that'll be there someday, I'm sure.
Nah, I'm sure that will be.
Yeah, but Abuela goes to find Mirabel, and she she basically pours her heart out at that point and says, I didn't realize this entire time that the gift that I was looking for this entire time was Mirabel. I didn't realize there's actually a lot of similarities between her her late husband and Mirabel. The way that they look, and that whole segment of with the butterflies and them in the lake, I only use Miyazaki in very few terms, at the times when I watch Hey Arnold the movie, or when I've seen or that scene in the Owl House with Rain and Ida, playing Ida's Requiem, and this bit here where they have all the butterflies and you see them having this moment, and you hear the music play up, that's what Disney films should be all about. Creating these moments and seeing how beautiful it all is, and having the story come to this climax, if you will.
Absolutely, yeah. It all culminates together so well, where we have the abuela approaching Mirabel after she feels guilty that the house is completely destroyed, and she feels like she was responsible for this. And then she tells her that she feels responsible for putting too much pressure on the family, and then there's the flashback again of her and Pedro starting their life together.
If we come actually, sorry, I do apologize. If you look at the flashback, if you think about it, the first flashback was kind of what stereotypically Disney would do, as a flashback, and then in the next flashback, this is the uncut version of the flashback. This is not seeing him getting killed, but seeing how his husband died, or not, it's somewhat how his husband died, and her just crying out because he's dead. In the lake, that's where they killed him. And, then you have Abuela saying, I've never been back to this place. It's that's pretty dark when you really think about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, having the fact that they had to run away from their home because there was a huge war going on in their city, and then the soldiers, they rushed by to kill off any people who escaped, and then Pedro said, go, take care of our children, find a place where you can find a place where you can be safe, and then he dies, and it would be traumatizing if a specific place that you would go to, you would remember such a bad thing. I mean, especially since she hadn't been back to it in over 50 plus years. I mean, of course that would be really devastating.
Yeah, but it's not just Abuela who has who's tragically lost her husband. The whole community around her respects her for the fact that he went out and sacrificed himself so that they can still be alive.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's the reason why, and because I was kind of a bit confused, why is it that this whole town is obviously they have gifts and things like that, but why are they so massively respectful? And then they realize that's the family that saved them. Pretty much, and so there's a huge amount of respect for that. So I think that was a nice touch. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So then we have that emotional moment, and then Bruno comes in, and he just totally chews up the end of that scene. And I kind of looked at it I know they're going to play this off as comedic value, but it's was it really necessary?
I mean, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to, approach her saying, I know I shouldn't be here. I apologize. And so she approached him and she hugged him because she forgave him of all that she'd done. And, that was actually a pretty sweet moment, too. I know it was trying to come across as a bit of a joke, but that was also a really sentimental moment as well.
It was, but I wouldn't have done it at that location. I would have waited until they came back to the house and Bruno was the first person she saw.
That would have been actually pretty good, yeah.
I think the vision of Bruno and being in the middle of the shattered house and him being in the middle of it, and then she would be the first thing that she would fix. I thought maybe that would have been more. That's how I would have done it. I know it's it's a questionable criticism. I'll admit that. I guess it doesn't really matter where they put it, but just visually, I would have had Bruno in the middle of the rubble, and the Abuela would then go up to him and do that. But I mean, that's another thing I don't particularly like. This is the one thing I don't particularly like about this movie. Bruno's far too forgiving. I would have thought, the way I would have done it is, Bruno will have been saying, okay, I'll somewhat, accept now, but I'm gonna need time to, mend things. in a way.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like Bruno doesn't like, the fact that he's been like living in the cracks of, the living in like, the voids of the walls this entire time, like, and has never wanted to like come back. Like you would have thought that he would needed time to like, wait for everyone to like kind of like forgive him and like stuff like, stuff like that takes time. Like how long has he been gone for?
Especially since, as you mentioned earlier, that he was in the background when they were singing "We Don't Talk About Bruno." So the fact that the family already has ostracized him and his name has become kind of like poison to even discuss about it. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that would have happened, but I guess it didn't. And so I'm like, okay, well, he was really quickly forgiven.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how to feel about the townspeople in all this. And by the way, shout out to the voice actress for Luz, who in the Owl House, because she's.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I guess we need to mention this. So I'm sure you guys have seen Jared Bush's Twitter thread where he talked about that when they were doing Scratch for Mirabel, he had brought back Sarah Nicole Robles, who was the voice of Luz in the Owl House, to do the voice of Mirabel. And they had already worked a few years prior because she also did Scratch for Moana. So I guess I'm just going to read off the tweets that Jared Bush had stated in terms of when Sarah Nicole Robles was helping with Scratch, with doing Mirabel while they were doing in production. So I'm sure you guys already have heard this already, but I'm just going to read it out for those who have not. It says right here, okay, Encanto friends, this deserves a much more deeper conversation. First thing you need to know, Sarah Nicole Robles, aka Snarklater, that's her Twitter account, by the way, and Instagram, is one of my favorite humans in the world. She and I have been working together for 7 years. Here's how. Most films that Disney Animation do take about 4 to 5 years to make, from concept to finish in theaters. During that time, we outline, write scripts, rewrite scripts, storyboard, edit, screen, and repeat this process about 7 or 10 times, all before it gets animated. That means we record many, many rough drafts of the movie to try things out, test ideas, find characters, pacing, comedy, emotion, etc. Most of the time, we record what is called scratch dialogue for those rough screenings ourselves in-house. For example, in Encanto's rough screenings, Charisse Castro voiced Pepa, Luis, Dolores, the townspeople, etc. By the way, for those who are wondering, Charisse Castro Smith, she also was a huge part in Encanto as well, so shout outs to her. Jared voiced the donkey delivery guy, Mariano, the townspeople, etc. But for the main voice actor, we needed to find a professional who had way more range. That was Sarah Nicole Robles, who was our hero. She did years of scratch acting for Mirabel, which you can hear her work. By the way, there is deleted scenes and animatics on YouTube that you can look up, and it does have Sarah Nicole Robles voicing as Mirabel, so you can go check that out. In some of the recently posted extra scenes that didn't make the final cut of the movie, she did scratch work for Moana, which is how I knew she was so phenomenal and would help us so much in experimenting with Mirabel's journey. I am indebted to Sarah for her incredible work. I'm so psyched to see her shine as Luz on the Owl House. I cannot wait for the next project where I will make sure all of her work is production dialogue.
Cool.
So, maybe that would be interesting. Will Sarah Nicole Robles be the next part of Jared and Byron's next film? I don't know. We'll just wait and see what happens.
I'm sure we'll find out sooner or later. But, yeah, you know what would be funny? Like, it was, Louisa was moving a church. Like, yes. in the first, like, how funny would it be if it was the Owl House? Like,
yeah, I mean, everybody knows in next to the Boiling Isles is Colombia.
Yeah. Okay. So, at the end of the movie, by the way, it's, Disney are usually pretty guilty of doing this. Like, they would have this, very, they would take their two characters, they would, like, have massive conflicts, something would burn or get smashed over or something like that. Then these two characters would get back together and then everything would be resolved and happily ever after. This doesn't happen in this movie.
No.
So, they go back to the house and the house is still smashed. And so it's up to the family and also the people in the town to put the house back together. And even when they put it back together, it's still not perfect.
No,
it's just,
not.
Yeah. So, they they actually give a doorknob to Mirabel that has her name on it, and she's so happy and overjoyed about it. So she puts it in, and then the magic returns to the house. Which,
yeah.
I don't know, it's a bit of a... I don't know, I would have been more happy if, she just put the doorknob in the van and, the house just kind of, remained what it is.
Well, I mean, it's actually interesting foreshadowing because when she touched the doorknob, when she was trying to receive her gift, the door completely disappeared. But then when she put the doorknob in, the house reappeared again. So she really had a strong connection to the house, which I think is great foreshadowing.
Yeah. And I guess you could say that Mirabel's gift, I guess, at the very, after all, is that she cares so much for her family, and that she's so, that she loves them so dearly. And I think that's her thing, which I think is a really sweet message.
That is a very great message. I mean, it almost kind of reminds me of like what they did with Monsters University about like how, sometimes the path that you're taking in is not the right path that you should go on. You should try to see if you can make your own. It's like, okay, well, maybe you don't have the gift of everybody else, like, oh, you don't have the gift of super strength. You don't have the gift to grow flowers. You don't have the gift of talking to animals, but you do have the gift of connection and family. And, that's just as important as anything.
Yeah. And so, Encanto is, I love this film. I really do.
Yeah.
Like, it's such, it touches me on so many levels. Like, just the fact it gives us like a positive image of Colombia, the fact it, gives us really lovable characters, the fact it's so colourful, the music is right on par, and, there's not a character I could say in this movie that I can't say I dislike. I like all of them. They're all charming to be around.
And the music is great, the animation's great, and the message is great. I watched this movie and I saw Raya and the Last Dragon, which were both Disney films that came out this year. I enjoyed Encanto much more.
Yeah, and I've not seen Raya and the Last Dragon yet, so that's still
okay.
That's still on the list. Right now, I've got my Disney Plus account back, but at the minute, I'm trying to catch up on all the Disney shows that I've missed. So some of the ones I want to revisit as a kid. So. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the fact that we've gone over an hour on this movie is got to definitely tell you something. If you've been listening to this podcast and not watching Encanto, then what are you doing? Go watch it. Like I said before, so I'm really happy that I saw it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who probably will agree with us. One thing, actually, shout out to everyone who's listening to this, by the way, and probably wanting to chime in yourselves. What's your favorite part of this movie, and what did you think of it?
Let us know. Let us know about who your favorite character is. What's your favorite song in the movie? What was your favorite moment of the movie? Yeah, just please. Or here's an interesting question: if you had the ability to get a gift from the house or the casita, what would it be and why?
Yeah. I mean, as of this podcast, by the way, we're recording this in January, so I mean, I don't know sure when exactly we're going to release this podcast, but I mean, I don't know if it definitely is going to be before the Oscars. I think we can definitely say. I think because
I mean, the Oscars is, I believe, next month, right?
It's next month. So if it's released before then, I mean, I guess we can probably speculate on where Encanto kind of lies, because there is a surprise contender that's currently coming up right now, which is the Mitchells versus the Machines, and
yes, and here's the thing: I know some people in the chat in the comments that has been requesting me to watch this, and I did say that I was going to watch it for my film of 2021. So
the reason I bring it up, I mean, it's not because of that. The reason I bring it up is because, I mean, if Mitchells vs. the Machines sweeps the award ceremonies with Encanto being the casualty, that's going to be a very massive shame. Because, after watching Encanto now, and it'd be very surprising if this doesn't win an award, for best music or something like that.
It has to win at least for the music.
Exactly, yeah. It's a great movie, and it's a shame that Mitchells vs. the Machine has been mind you, shout out to everyone who likes Mitchells vs. the Machines, by the way, because it is a movie that has come from the darkest pits and all of a sudden become this phenomenon. So I mean, I don't take away from Mitchells vs. the Machines whatsoever, but with Encanto, I just feel it's unfortunate that Encanto has come out at the same time as Mitchells vs. the Machines has, because I don't think it would be the fact that it's got such a hard contender now for Oscars, Golden Globes, all sorts of things. People were surprised that it took Mitchells vs. the Machines took home with the New York Critics Awards before Encanto did. So whatever praise that Encanto gets, I guarantee you it's not enough. It's a good
again, I haven't seen Mitchells versus the Machines, but I definitely have to take a look into it to see how it stacks up compared to all the other animated films that came out this year, because this year was pretty good for animated films. Vivo, Mitchells versus the Machines, Encanto, Raya the Last Dragon, Wish Dragon. So yeah, it's been a pretty solid amount of movies that came out this year.
Yeah. And one thing I'll definitely say is that, I mean, if there's no Encanto 2, or if there's no Encanto shorts at least, that'd be...
Or animated series.
Yeah, I think an animated series would work. I think, given the fact that you've got so many cast of characters to work with, I think, a TV series would actually be kind of good to watch. But, I think I would like to see a second movie. I want to see how Mirabel... I mean, keep in mind, they were teasing, engagements and, weddings and things like that, in the first movie. I'll be interested to see if, Mirabel gets a love interest in a second movie or somewhere down the line. So...
Yeah, well, we'll definitely have to wait and see. And maybe if if Byron Howard and Jared Bush want to have a sequel to this, then I wouldn't see why not.
Cool. Well, I think we've talked this to death.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we can wrap things up. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Again, let us know in the comments below about what was your favorite moments from Encanto, who were your favorite characters, what was your favorite song, and again, if you had the opportunity to get a gift from the casita, what would it be and why? So, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.